On today's episode of Do Y'all Remember B5? I am going to be discussing what this channel came from. Like, why am I doing this? Why couldn't I have just read books? Why couldn't I have just made an Instagram, which I did, it's linked below. Why couldn't I have just talked to people about books? Why did I have to make a channel? Okay, so it's We Were Liars by Lockhart. Please don't click out if you hate this book because I want to know why. But I want to discuss why I like it, and that's this whole video. If you hated this book, I mean, I don't want you to stop watching because I also watch people's least favorite books. I love to see people's opinions and reactions. And if you've never read this book, I'm going to talk about a non-spoiler summary of it, and then I'll tell you when the spoilers start if you want to click out, or if you just don't care, it doesn't matter. But for the non-spoiler version, very quickly, the summary of this book is basically, there's this girl, which I forgot her name, isn't that horrible? What is her name? Her name is Cadence, and her last name is Sinclair, and it's like the Sinclair family. It's like this very old money family, and they have this private island off the coast of Massachusetts, and they go there every summer. It's like her grandpa, her mom, her aunts, all her cousins are there. So the story starts out where all of her cousins are 8, and basically at that point in the beginning of the story, her aunt is dating someone who has a son. And so basically the whole story is about Cadence, her cousins, and this new boy, Gat. That was my cat. I should have closed the door. This is Archie. Hi, baby. He's a little fat boy. It's okay. So they meet every summer, and all of a sudden, something happens to Cadence. All she's told, because she doesn't remember anything, all she is told is that she was found on the shore, and they think that she bumped her head on the rocks, and she can't remember anything. The basis of the story is that she goes and spends these summers with her family. This very traumatic accident happened, which she remembers none of. And then when she eventually comes back to the island after recovering, she wants to know why people, her family, why they're not telling her what happened. So it's basically that with a little bit of romance sprinkled in. Oh my god, my cat. Sir, no. No. Archie, no. I should have shut my door. It's not based on the romance, but it is secondary. There is certain chapters that, although they're chasing the plot on her finding out what happened to her, also is about her relationship with Gat, the son to her aunt's boyfriend. So that's the whole spoiler-free plot, is her trying to figure out why nobody's telling her what happened, why she can't remember the accident, and then it's her relationship building with Gat, which is very heartbreaking at times. I'm going feral, and I'm gonna talk about everything that made me cry, that confused me, I have questions on, whatever. So this is it. Spoiler zone starts now. Okay, here's the thing. I'm mad at this book. There's so many things that I love about this book. The fact that even though there is only one, I guess 2 brown characters, which is Gat and his dad, it's for a reason, in the sense that there's also the racial undertones, especially with her grandfather, that they're not apparent in your face, but they're there, which is very realistic. And especially if it's just the one brown person in a sea of the white people, it also is brought up how just uncomfortable and how he'll never fit in, even though he's been going to the island since he was 8. So there's that, which is very important, because if it was just Gat and his father as the only brown people, and it was never discussed and never like, oh, everything's fine and dandy, I don't think I would like it as much. I like that they faced it. As much as it's in the news in real life, I do not want to read a book about that unless it's written by someone who is actually brown, or someone who is actually a part of the LGBT regarding, homophobia, or a woman who's talking about misogyny and stuff like that. I don't want a story written by a white person with brown people and then heavy racism thrown in. You know, it makes me a little uncomfortable. Also, that the main plot was her trying to find out what happened to her. I like genuinely didn't know where it was going. Okay. My question is, were they ghosts? So summer 15 happened. She had the accident, and then she doesn't go back to summer 16. But all of summer 17, she sees her cousins and she's talking with them. But are they actual, like, legitimate ghosts? Because I know her aunt says something like, yeah, I see him too, or whatever, which, like, hints to them being ghosts. But then it's never brought up again. And so I was like, okay, they must just be, like, subconscious, like, her memory wasn't there for the accident. So as a psych major, I mean, you guys know, you're smart. You guys know if something tragic happens, which not always, but sometimes the memories will be blocked so severely that other things will keep piling on top of it, which I'm not diagnosing her, I'm not saying anything, but it's kind of related. Some people become diagnosed with DID, dissociative identity disorder, which is basically, for lack of better terms, the split personalities. It's not schizophrenia, it's not that, but the split personalities in your head that protect you from the trauma. So it's related to that in a way, if it's not ghosts. If it's not ghosts, it's related to that in a way because then it's a part of her imagination, and although it's not different personalities that she like conjured up in her brain, like her brain didn't do that, it's trying to protect her from the truth, which I find very interesting. I don't know, that part of the book, like when you find out that her and her cousin set the fire to the house because they were tired of their family arguing about it, but then she set the fire too quick and she didn't get everyone out, and then she ran because she thought that they were there, and when she saw that they weren't at the meeting spot and she came back. Okay, let me tell you. Okay, I'm going a mile a minute. Actually, let me back up. Let me finish my one thought first. As I was saying with protecting, if they weren't ghosts and they were actually a part of her head and she was conjuring them up to protect herself, I think that was great. I think that was great. If they were ghosts, not saying that it wasn't great, I just don't really see the need. This book is so not advertised as anything supernatural, which again, it could be like, oh, an unexpected surprise element, but also I don't think it fit very well for them to be ghosts. So I hope that it was actually visions or a part of her brain protecting herself, because I find that more believable, and I find it just tugs at you more when you find out that they're slowly trying to get her to remember instead of throwing it all at once, and they want her to be okay with everything. So they're doing it in a way that, although slow and you don't really find out for the last 10% of the book, it makes it just seem more realistic. When I was reading it, because here's the brilliance thing. I'm just gonna like lose my mind. Okay, so as she's finding things out about what happened, I just loved it so much when you first find out that her and her cousin set the fire, right? In summer 15. And then that's where her injuries came from, because you remember that in the hospital bed when she woke up, she had like the bandages and stuff from the fire. So you were like, oh, perfect. We finally figured out what happened. But you don't know that they're dead yet. So I think that it was because Lockhart could have easily, at that point, just been like, yep, set the fire, and then everyone died, and now you're here. But it was, oh my gosh, I don't know. It was written so you were like, okay, I understand that they set the fire and that's how she got hurt. But then there's still so much more to the book. So now I want to know what happens. Because you're like so secure in knowing that that was the tragic accident, right? For me, I just might be dumb bitch, who knows? For me, I was like, oh, okay. Like, we know. Like, that's great. Let me finish this book. I did not expect for them to be dead. And I know that some of you who guessed it or just think it's obvious or whatever, granted, I stopped reading books regularly for about a decade. Like, I'm 24, so the start of high school, I might have read a couple books, but it certainly was not the amount that I was reading back in middle school and elementary school. So for me, I have so many, like, tropes or endings or plot twists that I have not read, especially when books, I want to say like 2010 to 2014, literally right when I was in high school, were the biggest. So books like We Were Liars that came out, I think 2014. Yep, 2014. I don't even know if they were at the forefront of this kind of plot twist, if it was being done so much at that time, so I don't know. So books like this now that I'm reading when they came out a decade ago, it's so refreshing for me because I haven't read it. So I think that's why this book means so much to me, because the author made you feel so secure in knowing what happened and then punched you right in the gut, right in the forehead and throat. And it hit me extra hard because I really like the characters in this. Now, I don't think this was necessarily a character-driven book. It was very much so the plot to find out what happened to her. But I do like the characters, and I find most times that books that are plot-driven and not character-driven, I don't really care about the side characters so much. Sometimes I might not even care about the main character because they're usually just a fill-in for some sort of cliche or some sort of pick-me girl with, a white girl with brown hair and she doesn't try too hard. It is what it is. But this one I found great. Not only because there were issues in the family, but there were issues in each character. I really found myself enjoying Cadence. She has everything, and she's still not happy, but everything in her life, like she gets to go to Europe and she's not happy because she just wants to be with her cousins, right? And then I think there's another trip that she was gonna take with her dad and she's like, no, I have to go back to the island. So it's like me working at Starbucks, having just paid off my car, and now I'm saving money. I'm like, if somebody offered me a trip to Europe or to go anywhere, Arizona, wherever she was going, hell yeah. I have to live in Florida. Do you know how hard that is? Do you know how many old people I have to drive by? If anybody, my family, my friends, sugar daddy, hello. If anybody was like, here's a plane ticket, let's go. Hell yes. Granted, I do not have a traumatic brain injury that everybody is keeping a secret from me, and I'm trying to find out the truth. Maybe that changes things, I'm not sure. But in that aspect, I know why people are kind of like, this girl really, like, her life isn't that hard. Why is she so upset? Completely understand. I'm also white passing. Like, no one's gonna look at me and think that I'm anything other than white. But I am also not rich like her. I can kind of understand why people were, like, tired of it. But I just really loved the relationship that she had with Gat. But I also just like the development that they had from when they were 8, and kind of like this back and forth of you knowing that Cadence really loves him and knowing that Gat loves her, of course, but then wondering how much, because sometimes he would be very aloof and then sometimes they would have these deep moments together, and it just kind of built that relationship from there. So I really wanted them together. And I think that's what tore me apart in the end when you find out that Gat and Cadence's 2 cousins are actually dead. Because everything that you thought was happening between Cadence and Gat, like in her visions or if they were ghosts or whatever, wasn't true. And I think the part that really got me, you're reading it and she's saying how she set the fire and then she ran to their meeting point because she was like, they must have gone out. Clearly the fire is happening, right? And she runs to the meeting point and they're not there. And then when she runs back and just the dialogue that she knows that they're in there and she can't save them. Oh, I literally have chills. You probably can't even see it. That got me so bad. I'm probably reliving my 14-year-old fantasy and all these like just dramatic young adult type things. But I love it. I'm thriving right now. And it was just... I loved it. I don't know what more to say. just that, okay, her relationship with God, listen, loved it. I want to talk about the writing style because that was something that people hated. Opinion. I love when things are not normally written. I love how choppy it could be. Granted, if it was the whole book, it would get very annoying very quickly. But it goes from a regular writing style and then it'll like, I don't know. I talked about it in the last one too. I just love it. Okay. So like it can go from being very in-depth and like normal writing and like just regular whatever. And then like this little blurb right here, it's very short little sentences. And I think they almost impact you more. If you go from reading normal, I'm just saying normal as like what you would expect. So if you go from that and then you have a pivotal moment or you have a moment of high emotion or you have a moment you want to remember and you condense it and make it short, I feel like that's so impactful. This video was a mess. Every video I'm like, okay, I'm going to talk about 3 very important things, and then I end up interweaving all of them and it doesn't make sense, and I'm just sitting here talking in my B5 t-shirt in my room alone with my cat. It's fine. It's okay. But yes, also, I'm just going to do this once. My little sign, it says shrimps camping, like shrimp scampi. And I laughed very hard when I first read it. That is what it says and that is what it means. I really love this book because it although I've enjoyed books before I read that, I like it. I really want you to read it. And it's just great. That's it. Read this book. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.